Hello again. We are here for live with Rachel, who's going to chat with us all about music and yoga and movement for little ones. Now, she's going to be at the FAM Summit talking about how important this is for 3-year-olds. And doing a demo. And so today I wanted to chat with her about, sort of what we can expect from the demo, a little bit more about why yoga, movement, and music is so important at the preschool age. And then, Rachel, if you request to join the live, I can add you. See if I can do it without you requesting. Yep. Okay. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. How are you? I'm doing well.
I'm doing good.
Yeah, happy Friday.
Yeah.
Yay! We made it through another week. Yeah. So thank you for that introduction. I'm so excited to be a part of the FAM Summit. And I've been seeing some of the other IG lives, and I think there's just so much talent that's going to be at this event, and I'm really excited to be a part of it. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. I feel like
Yeah.
a movement. I mean, we hear about things like, oh, play music for the baby, and there's different like music time activities for toddlers, but I
Yeah.
just love that you're talking about why music, movement, and then also yoga can be important
Mhm.
to the preschool age, and why and how you can incorporate it. And I'd just love to hear more about that.
Sure, sure. So YoReMi, which is my company, we actually created our program in a preschool that serves 2 through 4 year olds. So our
Okay.
program was actually designed for this age range. Over time, we added the older grades, but this is kind of the sweet spot where we really love to serve young children. So music, obviously, I think a lot of parents know, yes, play music for your baby, give them that sensory integration, that sensory input. Music is so wonderful for increasing so many things, patterning, sequencing, speech, language, all of that stuff. And then when you incorporate movement as well, especially yoga at this age group, it doesn't look like adult yoga. Sometimes people are like, yoga for 2 and 3 and 4 year olds? What does that look like? Well, it doesn't look like you can't like walk in and see like people sitting quietly in their spot and being silent and meditating. That's not what that looks like. But movement for this age is really about supporting their natural development along the milestones,
Oh,
um, engaging their creativity, encouraging their own self expression through music and movement, and then also really allowing them to feel safe and validated and heard and seen. So that's a lot about what we do. So it's very collaborative, it's very improvisational, as parenting is. and it's really a wonderful way both for parents and for educators and therapists and anyone who works with young children to really bond in a really profound way with the kids in their care. Yeah.
wow. So do you have music in the background while you're doing the different poses, or do the kids like sing along how does that
Yeah. So we actually play live music in the class. We use a ukulele,
oh,
which is an instrument that is small enough that you can actually hold and do yoga poses and play music at the same time.
wow.
Many of the songs that we use in our class were actually created in collaboration with children in a class. So the children would be like, I want to take a boat on this adventure. And we'd say, okay, so we do boat pose. And then we're singing row, row, row your boat. Now that's obviously a classic, but then, what do you do when a kid says, I want to take a car? I'm like, what's a car song? Okay, we're going to write a car song while we do these yoga poses. So many of our songs and activities actually were co-created with kids, which is really fun. So yes, we sing through the yoga poses. Um, we take lots of deep breaths. That's the other thing, is when you're singing, you're also breathing. And breathing is an important part of the yoga practice. Some say the most important part is learning how to take deep, long breaths, create breath awareness. So whenever we're singing, we're naturally doing that. As we all,
Yeah. As you were saying, reminding myself. It's funny that, especially when you're doing activities like you were saying.
yeah, yeah.
So you have virtual classes as well as in person,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So with both of those, do you sort of do that where you need to sort of use your improv skills to be like, okay, let's do, oh, okay, we're in the car now, and you add that to the song, or
Yes.
are the virtual ones more like predetermined?
It was interesting this year. We weren't sure what it was going to be like because prior to COVID, we did everything in person because we don't really advocate for a ton of screen time for young children. And so it was interesting to see how we could improv in a, on Zoom, which is not really improvisationally inclined.
Yeah.
And it worked really well. I mean, way better than I thought it would. We created signals with the children so they could, wiggle fingers when they had an idea, and then we'd find out what their idea was and incorporate that in. And so everyone wouldn't be talking over each other. So it was very similar. Um, and yes, it's the number one way to keep children engaged in any learning is to make them a part of it, to make it collaborative. So it was really important to us that we kept that spirit as part, even in a virtual class. So, I mean, just the other day, the children wanted to talk about animals, since that's a very common topic. And so we did, what animals would you see in a jungle? And we had, elephants and monkeys, but we also had unicorns and whales, and and it's all really, we want to be able to say yes
Yeah.
to the children no matter what they come up with, because we want to teach them that whatever they say is valid, and and it really is empowering for them to say, oh, I had that idea, and
Hmm.
now we're singing a song about it and we're doing yoga poses, and that was my idea. And it's really
Yeah.
cool for them.
They, like you said, the concept of, my ideas are valid is really important. And I think that translates into, when they're going to school later, they're more likely to ask questions, raise their hand, and want to participate because, they had that foundation of my ideas are great, they're valid, and I can participate in this discussion. So it's really neat. Um,
Yeah.
at the FAM Summit, do you envision doing, I know you're doing a demo,
Yeah.
but I don't know how many parents will have their kids with them or not. So you're going to are you going to have like a predetermined and then just kind of see, okay, let's see
Well,
what add.
I invite participation from adults as well.
Oh,
So
that,
we lead workshops for adults and educators. We lead teacher trainings where we certify people to teach children's yoga. And some of the biggest feedback we have, the most often we hear from people, this was so fun. I wish I could do this every day. And they're grown-ups.
right.
So we really invite the adults to take on kind of like that. Imagine you're 3, imagine you're 4, because you are still. That 3-year-old, that 4-year-old is still live inside of you. So let's have a little fun. And so we do invite the adults to take part, because I think that sometimes grown-ups feel a little stuck. They know that they want to, they know the benefits of musical education. They know they want to share mindfulness with kids. They know they want to, teach yoga to kids or whatever. And they might feel a little bit like, but how do I do that? How can I get into like that playful energy?
Instead of
And
feeling
so,
having
yeah,
fun. Yeah.
yeah. We really want to encourage grown-ups to find their own play, fun attitude. And then that can really, really connect to the kids. It really connects to the kids. So some of what we do at the FAM Summit will be demo, and I'll invite all the adults to sing along and play along and move along, and we'll take deep breaths together, because really with any practice, it really is, we have to have our own practice first, right?
Right. And
Yeah.
you often need to take deep breaths. You need, like you go into a room, everything's been destroyed, and before you have to remember, like, okay, let me step back and think about this. And so I think that's important. And then playing with our kids in that kind of silly way is something that I feel like they crave,
Mhm.
that safe and silly way. And so for parents to be able to meet that by doing something fun like this during the summit um, I think they'll be really great. Yeah, I like that idea. Thank you.
Yeah. And we will talk a little bit about the benefits and we'll go over that as well so people know why they're doing these songs and these movements and things like that. But yeah, we definitely encourage adults to just experience what it is like to, again, to feel a bit childlike, because I think it is very important to create that connection for sure.
And then children learn best through project-based or hands-on learning.
Hmm.
So learning through, doing movements like this. And then also I've heard that if you're trying to teach, numbers, singing numbers,
Yes.
much better, kids can access that easier. So would you say you're like you're combining all that research that you sort of,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. And it is true. I mean, you walk into any preschool class and you will see typically a teacher singing, clean up, now it's time to clean up," or something like that. There's always a song for lining up, there's a song for cleaning up, there's a song for coming to the kneading circle. Children learn routine through music. They respond tremendously well to music. And so it gives them a sort of a different language. And so our program also utilizes the pedagogy that is Dalcroze, which is basically that through our movement of our physical body, we can make music visible. And so we encourage children not only to do predetermined. We do teach yoga poses and we do a lot of things like that, but we also encourage a lot of creative movement. So children have the opportunity to really feel how music feels in their body. And through that, we learn a lot of concepts like fast and slow, tempo and pitch and tone and intensity or volume. And so they're learning like all of the basics of music education at a very young age by creating physical movements to go along with those concepts. Yeah,
that's all. Then also sort of like mindful practice as well, and connecting emotions with how it makes our, maybe how something makes us feel, how it comes out in our body. So if you're angry or something, how does that look? That's really important.
absolutely. I often offer the children who are in our classes, we often have opportunities to say how we're feeling. And then we ask, well, where is that feeling in your body? And children say, I feel, excited in my hands, or I feel sad in my belly, or I feel happy in my heart. They can identify, even at 3 and 4 years old, they can identify their feelings. They're starting to identify their feelings and where those feelings are physically in their body. Like, where am I feeling that way? And that's really important because I know a lot of grown-ups that don't have the capacity for like, I'm
Yeah.
feeling upset. Where is that living in my body? I don't know. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
ignore that.
Yes,
So,
definitely. I think even if you're aware of that fact, you have to constantly remind yourself as an adult, be mindful of this, take a step back, try not to always be reactive. And so I think it's really important to start that process of being mindful and like, oh, this is how I'm feeling. It's not just necessarily what, like for instance, coming into a room and it's a disaster. It's not just that. Like, why am I upset about this? Where am I feeling this, upset,
mhm.
and really taking that breath and a minute to think about things before you react. And so starting that foundation when they're in preschool is amazing. And I love that your approach combines so many elements that have been researched without, just having to sit there and be like, so kids, how are you feeling? This is
Yeah,
what feelings are, because
yeah,
that kind of direct approach that we think of as adults is not, accessible to little kids. And I'm
yeah.
like, are you talking about? This is boring. I'm gonna go over there. Uh,
Absolutely. Yeah,
yeah.
and we often talk about emotions when we're talking about different animals. So we might feel like proud like a lion or strong like an elephant. And often we weave in some of that alongside of that kind of, imagination play, because that's where we can really create, because children don't have necessarily that like specific line between reality and imagination. They're still weaving both like back and forth in between. There's not as such a hard line as we develop as we get older. So they're really open to that kind of exploration, and it can be really powerful. And I think that sometimes it's really powerful for the adults in the room too, because children are sometimes our best teachers. Oftentimes are our best teachers, even when they make big messes.
Yes. You can learn from your kids, like
Yeah.
very things. Even in technology, my kid will be like, why isn't this a touch screen? Because this is. And I'm like, that's a good question. Why isn't it all just, why doesn't it all flow?
Yeah, why is
Why do we make things more difficult for ourselves? This is good. Yeah.
that? And I think also what you said about mindfulness is really important, because I think when children learn these tools and adults learn these tools, the best thing about that is that children learn most from us by our behaviors. What we do
Yeah.
has a lot more impact than what we say. So when I'm able to share this with adults, I think it's really wonderful, because children learn a lot from how their grown-up responds to stress, how their grown-up models mindfulness, taking deep breaths, things like that. When things are stressful, kids are watching, they're absorbing everything. So I think it's kind of, our approach is two-pronged. We work with children and we work with grown-ups. So in we can approach it both ways.
That makes a lot of sense. So would you say that this is definitely a parent and me class, not, one where they would drop their kids off or, their child would be doing it solo virtually. It definitely
We do
requires,
both.
okay.
We do both. So we primarily, what we do is we work with schools. So the adults in that instance are the educators or the teachers or the paraprofessionals or whoever's in the room. So we are working with the teachers in that setting, and then also working with the children. And often we have, professional development workshops that we also give to the teachers who are working with us. So we're all on the same page, because beyond breathing and yoga movement and some of those things that we typically think of around mindfulness and mindful classrooms, there's also a whole piece on communication as well. So we also talk about non-judgmental communication. If we define mindfulness as observing or being aware without judging, which is like a lifelong practice, being aware without judging, um, then how can our communication also reflect that? So, how are we speaking with children?
Mm.
A lot, and this could be a whole other
Oh,
topic, but we do a lot about mindful communication as well. So, we'll touch on a smidgen of that at the Fan
that,
Summit.
yeah, because I've never thought about that, but that is I mean, that's exactly what it is. And that's something that I feel is very difficult to do and requires a lot of sort of brain rewiring,
Mm-hmm.
but is important for sure because kids can tell, if they're like, hey, look at this. And you're like, oh, yeah, it's great. They can tell you're not really excited about it too, or engaged in checking out what they're trying to show you. Um, yeah, so that'll be really, really good to explore a little bit more at the summit for sure.
Yeah, and they're really simple strategies. That's the main point that I want to make clear through anything that we do, is that this doesn't have to be difficult. And we often point out how people are already teaching music, how people are already incorporating movement, how folks are already doing things just naturally. And then if we just tweak these little pieces here and there, it can have like an exponential effect. So most of us are really, mindful in our communication when we can be. And then there are those moments where we're like, okay, that's good or whatever.
Right.
But just with like these
Very
small little tweaks, So we give some examples of like ways that we can interact with our kids and communicate with our children in more mindful ways that make them feel more intrinsically, that's a whole other thing, intrinsically motivated, but basically where that we get to really reflect their process and bring their self-awareness back to what they're doing, so then they can reflect on their own process, like, oh, I'm balancing, or oh, that picture, you used so many colors. Oh, I did use so many colors, rather than like, good job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So,
that's really good feedback. I feel like for all of us parents out there, like, oh yeah.
mhm.
And that's also that the speech language aspect, because if
Yeah.
you're saying things like, oh wow, I love all the blues and the greens and the oranges, you're giving them that language versus just,
Hmm.
oh, that's nice. Where you're not giving as many details and language.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, someone's banging on my door. um,
If I don't see any questions, is there anything else you want to share with us before we see you at the summit? I
no.
love my questions, and I'm so glad that you were able to join this live. Thank you for taking the time to do that.
Oh, yeah.
So
My
nice.
pleasure. My pleasure. Yeah, I would just say, the program will be appropriate for children and for grown-ups. So feel free to bring your kids. If you don't want to bring your kids, that's fine too. There'll be plenty of fun to be had for all ages. We will definitely be singing songs. Come ready to move, and it'll be a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to seeing everyone there.
Yes, awesome. Thank
Okay.
you so much, Rachel.
Thank you.
I will see you at the summit.
Thanks so much. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.